Something terrible was quietly unfolding in the shadows. A young woman was about to vanish. Her name was Tess Richey, just 22 years old. She had dreams, plans, and people who loved her deeply. She was out with a friend. She was walking, she was texting, she was laughing, and then she was gone. No one could imagine that within just a few hours, Tess would become the center of a tragedy that would shock the entire country. A tragedy worsened not just by her murder, but by how her case was handled, how it was missed, how it was failed. This is not just the story of a crime. It's a story of a daughter, a mother's instinct, a system's silence, and a final devastating discovery, made not by trained investigators, but by a mother searching the streets for her baby girl. This is the story of Tess Richey, and what happens when justice comes too late. Before she was a headline, before she was a hashtag, Tess Richey was simply Tess. She was born on December 30th, 1994, in North Bay, Ontario. The youngest of 4 daughters, Tess was the baby of the family, not just in age, but in spirit. Her mother, Christine Hermiston, often described her as gentle, sweet and kind to her core, someone who felt deeply, cared endlessly, and saw the good in people even when she shouldn't have. Tess didn't chase the spotlight. She wasn't loud or attention-seeking, but when she entered a room, people felt her presence. She had an easy laugh, a soft voice, and a face that lit up when she talked about the things she loved: animals, art, music, and most of all, her family. From a young age, Tess showed signs of deep empathy. She was the kind of kid who would stop to help a hurt bird or cry at a sad scene in a movie. She journaled, she doodled, she spent hours drawing and dreaming. Her sisters would often say Tess was quiet, but clever. She didn't need to speak loudly to be heard. Her kindness spoke for her. Friday, November the 24th, 2017. It was supposed to be a fun night out. Tess had plans to meet up with an old friend named Riley Simard, someone she hadn't seen in a while. The two decided to reconnect and head to church in Wellesley, Toronto's vibrant LGBTQ+ neighborhood. That Friday night was cool but alive with energy, as people poured out of bars and cafes, laughing, dancing, living. Tess and Riley ended up at a place called Cruise and Tangos, a well-known drag bar in the heart of the district. There they had drinks, talked, and later met a man neither of them had known before, Kalen Schlatter. He was 21, charming, talkative, a smooth presence that didn't immediately raise red flags. The three left the bar together sometime after 1 a.m. CCTV footage captured their walk. They laughed, shared cigarettes, and continued up Church Street. According to police, Schlatter was actively flirting with both women throughout the night. At some point, Riley said goodnight and left Tess alone with him. That was the last time Tess Richey was seen alive by anyone who loved her. In the early morning hours of Saturday, November 25th, Tess texted her mom. It was 3:56 a.m. The message read, "I'm home safe," but she wasn't. That message was sent from near Church and Dundonald Street, the last known location of her phone. After that, Tess went silent. No one heard from her again. For hours, then days, her family tried calling, messaging, asking friends, no response. Her mother, Christine Hermiston, immediately knew something was wrong. Tess was independent, yes, but she was always in touch, always responsive. She would never just disappear. Christine called Toronto police. She reported her daughter missing. She waited and waited. But help didn't come. Despite Christine's pleas, Toronto police did not immediately consider Tess a high-risk case. She was a young adult. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe she was out with someone. Maybe she was fine. But Tess wasn't fine. And Christine knew it. Incredibly and tragically, police didn't search the area where Tess had last pinged her phone. They didn't comb the neighborhood. They didn't canvass buildings. Instead, it was Christine, Tess's mother, who took action. She flew from North Bay to Toronto exhausted, heartbroken, and desperate for answers. She printed missing person posters, walked the downtown streets alone, and handed out flyers. She begged anyone who'd seen Tess to speak up. She retraced her daughter's steps from the club, to the cameras, to the alleyway, and then she found her. On Wednesday, November 29, just 4 days after Tess vanished, Christine walked down Dundonald Street, following her instincts. She checked alleyways, she looked behind buildings, she passed a stairwell next to an abandoned building, And there, at the bottom of the stairs, in a dark, recessed area, hidden from plain view, she found Tess's body. Christine screamed. She fell to the ground. The pain was immediate, raw, and life-altering. She had done what police should have done days earlier, and discovered her own daughter's lifeless body. Tess had been left in the cold. The official cause of death was later revealed to be mechanical asphyxiation. She had been strangled. She died right there, likely within minutes of being left alone with Schlatter. The public outrage was instant. Once the news broke that a missing woman had been found by her own mother, people demanded accountability. Toronto police began piecing together surveillance footage from that night. They tracked Tess walking with Kalen Schlatter after 4 a.m. They found video of him lingering around the area after Tess disappeared, alone, pacing, even returning to the scene later. When questioned, Schlatter initially denied involvement. He said they had parted ways and Tess had simply gone home. But investigators recovered DNA evidence from Tess's body. They also discovered that Schlatter had a disturbing pattern. He had a history of trying to lure women into secluded areas. He often bragged to friends about getting girls into alleys. On February 4, 2018, over 2 months after Tess's death, police arrested Kalen Schlatter and charged him with first-degree murder. The arrest of Kalen Schlatter on February 4, 2018 was just the beginning of a long legal process, one that would expose disturbing truths about who he was and what really happened that night. After months of investigation, public pressure and preparation, the case finally went to trial in March 2020 at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Toronto. For Tess's family, the wait had been agonizing. They had lost their daughter, and now they had to sit in a courtroom and listen to the horrifying details of her final moments, hoping for justice, dreading what they might hear.
From the start, the Crown prosecutors made one thing clear.
This was not an accident. This was not a misunderstanding. This was murder, deliberate and calculated. They described how Schlatter, after leaving the bar with Tess and Riley Simard, had stayed close to Tess after Riley went home. He lured her to a stairwell beside a construction site on Dundonald Street. There, prosecutors alleged he sexually assaulted and strangled her. The motive? As chilling as it was, senseless. The Crown argued that Schlatter was obsessed with sex, not love, not companionship, just conquest. Investigators had uncovered evidence from his phone showing that Schlatter had sent messages to friends bragging about how many women he could seduce in a week and how he could get them into dark places. The prosecution even presented DNA evidence found under Tess's fingernails and on her clothing. It matched Schlatter. Surveillance footage showed them together minutes before her death, and text messages he sent afterward proved he had lied about what happened. But Schlatter's defense team painted a different picture. They claimed the encounter was consensual, that Schlatter and Tess had kissed, possibly had a romantic moment, and then parted ways. The defense argued there was no proof of intent, no sign that Tess had resisted. They claimed there was no motive for murder, no video showing the act, and no eyewitnesses. In their version of events, the tragedy was vague, unfortunate, but not premeditated. But the jury didn't buy it. One of the most devastating parts of the trial came when the coroner testified. Tess Richey had bruising on her neck, broken blood vessels in her eyes, and signs of manual strangulation, all consistent with mechanical asphyxiation. She had been strangled with bare hands, not by accident, not in self-defense. The pathologist confirmed this was a slow, deliberate killing, lasting 30 to 60 seconds. That detail, that Tess was alive and aware as her life was taken, was unbearable for her family to hear. Tess's mother, Christine Hermiston, attended every day of the trial. So did her sisters. They wore pins with Tess's face on them. They carried tissues. They held hands. They listened to the most unthinkable details day after day because they wanted to be there for Tess, even in death.
Christine later said in interviews that no parent should ever have to sit through something like that, but she did it for her daughter. She wanted Kalen Schlatter to see the faces of the people whose lives he had destroyed. On March 18, 2020, after 9 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. Schlatter showed no visible emotion as the verdict was read. Tess's family, however, broke down in tears, a mix of relief, sorrow, and vindication. Justice had finally been served. The conviction carried an automatic life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. It was a powerful moment, but it didn't erase the pain. Outside the courtroom, Christine Hermeston spoke to the media. "We are heartbroken, but we are grateful that the man who took Tess away will never have the chance to hurt anyone else." She thanked the jury. She thanked the public for their support, and she reminded people who were watching, never ignore your gut, always push for answers, always speak up when something feels wrong. Christine's strength, from the day Tess disappeared to the day of the verdict, became a symbol of resilience across Canada. Even after the verdict, Christine Hermeston couldn't return to the life she once knew. Her daughter, her baby girl, had been taken from her, not just by a violent killer, but by a system that was supposed to protect her, a system that didn't listen, that didn't act fast enough, that waited, while Tess lay cold and alone, just steps away from help. In the months after the trial, Christine began advocating for change. She demanded accountability. She gave interviews. She told Tess's story to anyone who would listen, not for sympathy, but to make sure it never happened again. And it worked. The Toronto Police Service faced intense backlash. Critics slammed the department's slow response and failure to launch a proper missing persons investigation. In response, an independent review of missing persons cases in Toronto was launched. The 2021 report revealed serious gaps in communication, bias in how cases were prioritized, and inadequate training, especially when it came to vulnerable or marginalized individuals, including women and LGBTQ+ people. As a result, several recommendations were made to reform the Missing Persons Unit, improve public alerts, increase community engagement, and ensure faster risk assessments. Tess's case helped shine a light on those failures. She was no longer just a victim. She became a catalyst for change. Today, Tess Richey is remembered as more than a tragic headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was kind, creative, and full of life. Her dreams were simple: to build something good, to help others, to live freely and fully. Her memory lives on in the people who loved her, and in the strangers who now know her name. Every time someone shares her story, they're helping protect the next Tess, the next young woman who deserves to be found, to be believed, and to be brought home. To anyone watching this, remember Tess. Let her story be a reminder that violence doesn't always look like a stranger in the dark. Sometimes it looks like charm, like safety, like someone who walks you home. Trust your instincts. Speak out when something feels wrong. Don't wait. Don't be silent. And to the families who are still searching, still hoping, still grieving, we see you. We stand with you. Justice can come late, but your voice can make sure it comes at all. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. What changes do you think should be made to missing persons investigations in your city? Let's keep this conversation going, because Tess deserved better, and so does everyone still waiting for answers.